Shalom again, everybody. Ariel Bar Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.koshertorah.com, bringing to you today's daily lesson in the Sefer Yetzirah. This is lesson number 79, dedicated, of course, to the safety, health, well-being, prosperity, and protection. Everybody going through the trials and tribulations of modern times. Yippee-ki-yay! But let's get down to business. We are in the 5th chapter of the Sefer Yetzirah. I introduced to you some topics in our previous class with the handout. I have the handout here from yesterday. No, that's the handout from the other day. Yeah, there's the handout from yesterday. Got a whole bunch of stuff stacked here on my desk. Anyway, we associated, Rabbi Chaim did, I should say, in his commentary, the attributes, which in the Sefer here calls manhigim, or guides, or maybe powers of influence, and correlated them to the tribes of Israel. And we associated them with identities called archetypes, psychological archetypes. And this next Mishnah Bet, is going to introduce to us a topic which we kind of already been introduced to, but we're going to go into it a little bit deeper. And this pretty much is going to be the association with what we call astrology. Now, astrology definitely is mentioned in the Bible and is mentioned in the Talmud and, of course, in later mystical literature. Now, the Bible makes it very clear that predictive astrology is, well, pretty much discounted. It's mocked even. Now, there are laws in the Torah which forbid against the observance of certain types of superstitious occultic practices. All right? This is called like me'onan or machshov and stuff like that in the Torah. I actually have an entire class, a course actually, from the Code of Jewish Law, the Shulkhan Arukh section called Yoreh, Deah, on the laws of the occult. It's I think it did in 5 lessons, and it's available for free. Go to my KosherTorah.com page, go to the page of our free audio library, and you'll see the links there. Just take it and listen. I don't know if I've uploaded it to YouTube. You know, we've got so much on YouTube. I don't even remember half of what's up there anymore. But anyway, it's definitely worthwhile for those of you, certainly of a Torah observant orientation, to know the halachot, the laws and practices of what we observe, how we observe them, and what are the real parameters. Because ultimately, and this is a big deal, between Judaism and Christianity, the definitions of that which we call the occult differ sharply. Because for the Christian, anything that is not in their limited expression of their faith and anything outside of their context of spirituality, they consider to be demonic and evil. Judaism, the original Torah, of course, was not so monolithic, was not so black and white. You can even see references to this in the historical teachings of Yeshu, which of course reflect back to teachings of the rabbis. But with regards to the mazalot, let's just stay here. Mazalot, of course, are the constellations. The Bible makes it very clear. The prophets are mocking, try to predict the future, see what happens. And why is that such a bad thing? All right, here, let me introduce to you the Mishnah before we go ahead. Mishnah Bet says very clearly, Yab Peshutot, Yab is Yud, Bet or 12, and we know what those letters are already. Hey Vav Zayin, Hetet Yud, Lamed Nun Samech, Ein, Sadi, Kof. Those are our 12. What do we do with them? Yesadan, Hakakan, Chatzivan, Sarafan, Shakelan, Vahamiran. We're going to do all that fun stuff that we have done with all the other letters. We're going to carve, we're going to engrave, we're going to permutate, we're going to weigh them, we're going to measure them. What again are we talking about? Now, remember, from the point of view of the external world, the energy fields of which we speak What are those energy fields again called? Oh, that's right, letters. And what are letters? Oh, that's right, they're sounds. And sounds are oscillations and frequencies of energy. And guess what even modern science knows? Energy, sound oscillations. Go talk to Nikola Tesla about sound and oscillations. These sound waves have the power and the ability to do amazing things. They can heal or they can hurt. They can build or they can break. They can even create levitation or destruction. Remember the big story of the walls of Jericho? They came tumbling down. It wasn't like God stood behind the walls and gave them a little kick. Ha, ha, ha. No, they were using a sonic technology, the sounds of the stomping of the feet, boom, 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 the pulsation, boom, 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 boom. And then with the shofar, woo, just like you would send a voice against glass to shatter it, that's how the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. Those were sounds. It is based upon sound technology that we understand the form of combinations of letters. Remember, they are the vessels for the sefirot, which are the life force energies which come into the forms of this world. So here we are now discussing what we call diagonals, which we said are interactions of the sephirotic paths. We call them in our Torah tradition the individual letters. Other traditions will call them by other names. Why? Like Carl Jung would say, there are racial subdivisions within the collective unconscious. If I want to speak to you now, I'm speaking to you in the English language. If the Rabbanit was here, she could speak to you in French. I could easily turn and speak to you in Hebrew. These are different languages, but they're all kind of like saying the same thing. You don't look at the words on the outside, you look at the essence in the middle or inner essence of it, right? So, in that respect, this is how you must understand energy. Letters. Just like I can put all the different letters together and form words, the universe puts together different forms of energies and constructs matter, material form. Kind of sounds like chemistry, doesn't it? Put this and that energies together and this and that pattern, and you have an atom of this or that element. Combine this or that element with this and that element, and you combine and get molecules. Put all the molecules together, you can get cells. Put the cells together, and on we go. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about here. But that's in the external world. So, with all of these permutations and combinations, right, that are happening in the greater universe by the higher hand, you and I, we deal with this stuff as well as contemplative meditations, wherein which we can look at names, associations, and the ideas that are related to them, archetypes, and we allow this stuff to churn in the brain so that we can contemplate it, think about it, and therefore allow, remember Sechel Tunudah from the first chapter, the intellect to go days off kind of like into the imaginative. And the imaginative is going to bring us some brilliant ideas. And when we go pop, hey, that was a great idea. Where'd that come from? And you're going to sit and you're going to think about it and contemplate it and etc. and so on until you go off into another daydream and more stuff. And you're going intellect, intuitive, back and forth. And this is the oscillation process. But what are you thinking about? You're thinking about these concepts and these ideas. These concepts are the vessels for the energies they are in, and so are the letters. And what was formed? In this respect, from these 12, it says what was formed were the 12 mazalot, the 12 signs of the zodiac in the world, the 12 months of the year in time, and the 12 manhigim, or the influences, which we discussed in our previous class, in the soul, male and female. Now, getting back to astrology, all right? So you have the 12 constellations, that we ascribe as having power upon us. Now, let's say, for example, like most of us, you are not educated in astronomy. And if you look up at the night sky and you see all the pretty stars, other than maybe if you know the Big Dipper or the Little Dipper, how many of you can actually look out and recognize the star patterns of Gemini or Cancer or Leo? How many of you could actually say, yep, there's the stars, 1, 2, 3, 4, that forms this constellation, etc.? Chances are most of us can't do that. Unless you're educated in these things, you're not going out into the night sky recognizing anything. Even if you are an astrologer, the chances are you only know these things from the pages of a book. Well, in the olden days, they used to go out and actually look up in the sky. Now, according to, if you will, the history of astrology, many people will say, yeah, they used to make believe that they saw patterns up there, and they just created stories and myths, because, those old people, they're so primitive. They were so dumb, like those guys, stupid, dumb primitives who built the pyramids and ancient cities and had such weird ancient stuff that to this day we don't know how they did it, and we can't even repeat it. Yeah, they're really dumb in the ancient days. Yeah, sure. Okay. Arrogance. But getting back to the point, somehow the ancients knew, whether they were Chaldee or Bavali or whatever, we again associate with Abraham the interactions and knowledge of astrology. Indeed, the Talmud states in Tractate Shabbat, Daf Ayin Hey, that when the Bible says Kihi Chochmatam Ubinatam B'nei Olam, that this is your wisdom and the respect for your understanding in the eyes of the nations, that the rabbi said that this is our understanding of astrology, Tikafot Mazalot, times and seasons. The ancient rabbis knew very well, as it says in the Bible, a time and a purpose for all things under heaven. When they looked up at the stars, just like we do now in Jungian psychology, okay, we recognize the patterns. But in the olden times, they used to recognize that certain times of the year, the people born thereunder had certain, personality tendencies. Now, does this actually predict their future? No, not at all. So, for example, now, again, we've gone into this in the previous chapter, one who's born under a astrological sign, which is of a month, or of a specific planet, which is of a day or an hour. We say that the day and the hour has the greater influence. So let's say, for example, someone is born under the planet Mars. Mars is red, so Mars means bloodshed. So does that mean if you were born under the planet Mars, you're going to be associated with bloodshed? Not necessarily, but it might indicate a certain personality. So what is bloodshed? Well, it doesn't mean, God forbid, that one's going to become violent or criminal. It could very well mean that one becomes a doctor, one who performs circumcisions. In all due respect, every doctor who I've ever known does surgery somehow gets kind of bloody. Yeah, okay, that's the docs, they'll tell you. But not in a negative way, in a positive. So you see, everything has positive and negative to it. So no one can look towards an astrological influence and predict from it a definitive future. That is what the Torah prohibits. Yeah, to the point of death. Why? Simply because in the Torah's point of view, we exist in, I guess, what we'll call a quantum reality, meaning multiple, possibly even infinite potentials. And when we take away individual potential and lock it into place, we are essentially enslaving that soul, damning them to a destiny that they do not necessarily have to fulfill. Now, this is the power of the soul, the mind, and its interpretations. So, when one goes to look at a chart in astrology, it's very easy to look at things now with computer technology and the telescopic, insights into the universe that we have. And we could easily see where planets were exactly at the time of someone's birth, and where those planets are exactly at any time after a person's birth. But what does that all mean? How do we use these movements to, if you will, project trajectories, project predictions? How and what and when, where, why, how? Well, that seems to be more of an art than a science. Plotting stars, that's an astronomical science. Interpreting their psychic or spiritual or psychological meaning, that is clearly human. And that is an art. Now, something very curious. Associated with this is dreams. Dreams, of course, need to be interpreted. Indeed, the Talmud says a dream uninterpreted is like a letter unread. But the Talmud makes it very clear that dream interpretation is completely subjective to the individual, and the power of suggestive influence of an interpreter of a dream can actually bring about its literal fulfillment. So be careful who you tell dreams to. That's, again, from the Talmud tractate Occult. Go onto our YouTube channel. Our teachings about dreams should be up there. But the months of the year, the signs of the zodiac. Remember this. Here's our Earth going around our sun, whichever way we go out there, right? All of these pictorial images, they're not really there. But we have associated collections of what I guess we can again call cosmic energy, which bombard our planet as we're going around the sun. And each of these influences at its time, remember the moon goes around the earth 12 times in a year, ballpark, and that creates the months. Well, each month, and this is where, again, Jewish astrology differs from secular. Secular astrology, as you know, begins from like the middle of the month to the next month. Well, in Torah astrology, every month is associated with a specific sign. So right now, at the time of the recording of these classes, I am in June, which is the Hebrew month now of Siwan, and this is the sign of Te'omim, the twins, or Gemini. We will soon, next week, come into the next Hebrew month called Tammuz. The sign, of course, there is Sartan, which is Cancer. Now, the earth is moving. These energies tend to have influence. But again, these influences suggest to be, I guess, personality-based, psychologically based. So like we introduced in our class yesterday, the 12, what are here called manhigim, emphasis which materializes into action. Remember? Speech, thought, movement, sight, hearing, action, sex, smell, sleep, anger, eating, and laughter. Archetypes. We all have all of these things, but like we discussed yesterday, certain people are more of a type than another. We call this personality. So to be able to understand one's own individual personality, unlike today, where we might use the tools of modern psychology or psychoanalysis, throughout the centuries, millennia, not only the Jewish tradition, but every other has used stars and planets, associations and correlations. And Israel, Jews, certainly not the only ones to do this. We have the Greeks did this, the Egyptians did this, to this very day of the profound Jyotish traditions of the Vedas in Hinduism. So yeah, pretty deep stuff. For some, this is all evil idolatry of the devil. But remember, that is a mythology in and of itself. The devil never created anything, in all due respect. The devil, in the Hebrew, that's Satan, and Satan means prosecutor, right? He kind of like works for God, and his job is to go around, being like a prosecutor in a court. He's not a creator. He's not in rebellion against God or anything of the kind, so he doesn't have minions or anything of the kind. He doesn't have influence and powers of all of this. This is all from God. If we choose to misuse or misunderstand or abuse, don't blame the devils out there. Blame ourselves, because that's really where the essence needs to be focused. So the Sefer Yetzirah is here to teach us associations. We referred to these by their proper psychological name, archetypes. As this chapter will progress, we are going to learn the associations and archetypes of how they correlate and correspond. In ancient times, these also were considered to have a medicinal factor, and that these influences affected individual parts of the human anatomy. And that became the foundation of many things. We'll pick that up in our classes to come. But okay, ran out of time here. God be willing, I'll see you all online soon. Check out our course page on KosherTorah.com. I'll see you all soon. Shalom.